The Deception Protocol. Admiral Reyna Voss stood before the curved view screen that dominated the command center of Earth Defense Station Olympus. Her reflection, silver-streaked hair pulled into a tight bun, weathered face set in practiced neutrality, overlaid the tactical display showing 12 blinking red markers approaching the outer colonies. "How long?" she asked, her voice carrying the weight of 2 decades in command. Lieutenant Commander Chen glanced up from his console. 26 hours until they reach Elysium 9's sensor range. The hegemony fleet is maintaining formation. No indication they know we detected them. Voss nodded. The Solarian Defense Council had spent years preparing for this moment. Intelligence reports, diplomatic signals, resource movements, all had pointed to the inevitable. The 7 species comprising the galactic hegemony had finally decided that humanity's rapid expansion was a threat that needed containment. "Begin Siren Protocol," she said quietly. "All personnel on Elysium 9, New Titan, and Proxima Station are to commence evacuation protocols immediately. Leave everything in place as planned." Commander Reeves, her tactical officer, frowned. "Are we certain about this approach, Admiral? The outer colonies represent over 30% of our industrial capacity. They represent what we want the hegemony to think is 30% of our capacity," Voss corrected. "The colonial infrastructure has been designed for this moment since ground was broken. Project Siren is our best defense. They expect an easy victory against an unprepared species. We're giving them exactly what they expect to see." She turned to the holographic interface at the center of the room, waving her hand through the projection to expand the view of Elysium 9. To any observer, the colony appeared to be a standard terraforming operation. Vast, gleaming biodomes connected by transit tubes, agricultural sectors spreading across the temperate southern continent, mining operations in the northern mountains. All perfectly normal, all meticulously crafted deception. "Alert all command personnel. Operation Siren is now active." On board the hegemony flagship Immutable Doctrine, Chancellor Vorax of the Tresidian hierarchy studied the sensor readings with 6 of his eyes, while his remaining 2 focused on the assembled War Council. His segmented exoskeleton gleamed under the command deck's blue lighting, mandibles clicking softly as he processed the data. "The human worlds are exactly as our intelligence suggested," he announced, compound eyes reflecting the tactical display. "Minimal orbital defenses, scattered planetary installations, no significant military presence." General Calgos of the Eurythian Dominion flexed his armored limbs, the gesture sending ripples through his muscular frame. "This confirms our assessment. Their expansion has been rapid precisely because they sacrifice security for speed. They have stretched themselves too thin." Ambassador Sheeler, the lone dissenting voice among the hegemony leadership, raised her slender fingers. The Alluvian diplomat's translucent skin pulsed with concern. "The lack of defenses troubles me," she said, her melodic voice carrying across the chamber. "Humans have shown remarkable adaptability in our limited encounters. Is it possible that they would deliberately leave their most valuable colonies undefended?" interrupted Admiral Krovac of the Marzelian fleet. His metal-infused skin caught the light as he laughed. "Their species is barely 2 centuries into interstellar travel. They cannot have anticipated our decision to intervene." Vorax silenced further discussion with a gesture. "The Council's decision is final. Human expansion threatens regional stability. Their technology is advancing too rapidly, and their resource consumption patterns suggest they will soon compete with established hegemony interests. Integration as a protectorate species is the only acceptable path forward." He turned to the tactical display, manipulating the controls with practiced precision. "We will begin with Elysium 9. Its agricultural output makes it valuable, but its low population density minimizes potential resistance. Once secured, we move to their manufacturing center at New Titan, then the research facilities at Proxima Station. Earth itself will be approached only after we control their outer resources." The War Council nodded in agreement. The hegemony had incorporated 17 species into its dominion over the past millennium. Humans would be no different. The hegemony assault force descended through Elysium 9's atmosphere with practiced precision. 200 dropships arranged in perfect formation, carrying over 15,000 troops and equipment for establishing permanent control over the human colony. Commander Drazak felt uneasy as his dropship approached the primary landing zone. 30 years of military service had honed his instincts, and something about this mission felt wrong. Still no response to communications, reported his second-in-command. No defensive measures detected, no atmospheric traffic at all. What about the colonists? Drazak asked, mandibles twitching nervously. Life signs are inconsistent. Environmental systems are running, but population centers show minimal activity. The first dropships touched down in the main plaza of Elysium 9's central dome. Troops poured out, weapons ready, only to find the streets empty. Perfectly maintained buildings stood silent. Shops with merchandise still displayed. Restaurants with tables set. Homes with personal items in place. But no people. Command, this is Ground Force Alpha, Drazak reported. Colony appears to be abandoned. Requesting permission to. He never finished the transmission. Beneath his feet, the ground trembled. At first, just a vibration, but growing stronger until the entire plaza shuddered. Across the colony, identical tremors rippled outward from the center of population zones. In orbit, the hegemony fleet commanders watched in confusion as their ground team's communications became erratic, then panicked. Something's happening. Came the desperate transmission from Colonel Vexnar. The buildings are moving. The streets air. The transmission cut to static. On the surface, Drazak watched in horror as the seemingly decorative obelisk in the center of the plaza split open, panels sliding apart to reveal a massive energy weapon that rose smoothly into firing position. Around him, other structures were transforming. Residential towers splitting along hidden seams to reveal missile batteries. Shopping complexes retracting to uncover shield generators. Transit tubes repositioning into defensive perimeters. The entire colony was changing. It's a trap. He screamed into his communicator as his troops scrambled for cover. The colony is a weapon. In low orbit, Admiral Krovak's flagship detected the energy surge too late. Massive cannons, hidden beneath what had appeared to be agricultural domes, locked onto the hegemony vessels and fired in coordinated salvos. 3 capital ships disintegrated in the first barrage, their shields useless against weapons calibrated specifically to bypass their frequencies. Chancellor Vorak staggered as his command deck shook violently. "Return fire," he ordered. "Target those weapon emplacements." But the hegemony's targeting systems couldn't lock on. The colony's transformation continued, structures rearranging, defensive systems shifting positions faster than the attackers could track them. From what had been the colony's central administration building, a massive structure rose skyward. Not a building at all, but the command center of what was effectively a planet-side battleship. Energy shields snapped into place over critical systems, deflecting the few accurate shots the hegemony fleet managed to fire. "Sir," cried a sensor officer, new contacts emerging from the surface. Hundreds of small craft shot upward from concealed hangars that had been disguised as water reclamation facilities. Unlike the bulky, practical vessels of most human design, these were sleek, predatory fighters that moved with unnatural agility. "Impossible," Vorax whispered. "Their technology is decades behind ours." Ambassador Sheeler, who had insisted on accompanying the flagship, shook her head. "You assumed their public technology represented their military capability. A fundamental error." On the colony surface, Commander Drazak and his surviving troops found themselves trapped between transformed buildings that now functioned as automated defense turrets. The beautiful parklands that had decorated the colony revealed themselves as kill zones, with pre-sighted artillery coverage eliminating any cover. "Fall back to the dropships," he ordered, but it was too late. The landing zones had been the first areas to transform, with supposedly decorative arches now revealed as massive weapons emplacements that systematically destroyed the hegemony transports. In orbit, the situation was deteriorating rapidly. 5 more capital ships had been destroyed, their formations broken as they attempted to withdraw to a safer distance. The human fighters harried them mercilessly, using attack patterns that suggested intimate knowledge of hegemony ship design, targeting exactly the weak points in their armor and shields. This was planned. General Caligos growled, blue blood seeping from a gash in his armored hide where a console had exploded. They knew we were coming. They built this colony as a trap. Chancellor Vorax stared at the tactical display, watching as his invasion force was systematically dismantled. "Recall all ground forces," he ordered. "Prepare for emergency jump coordinates." The sensor officer looked up, mandibles quivering. "Sir, jump drives are offline. Some kind of targeted interference. And ground communications are being jammed. We can't reach the surface teams." For the first time in his 300-year life, Vorax felt fear crawl through his segmented body. What kind of species would sacrifice entire colonies as bait for a trap? On his command screen, a new signal appeared, a direct communication request from the surface of Elysium 9. When he accepted, a human face appeared on the screen. An older female with silver-streaked dark hair and the bearing of authority. She wore a simple dark uniform with minimal insignia. "Chancellor Vorax," said Admiral Reyna Voss, her voice steady. "This is the United Earth Defense Force. Your fleet has violated sovereign human territory and initiated hostile action against a civilian colony. Our response has been measured and proportionate." Vorax hissed, mandibles clicking rapidly. "Measured? You've destroyed half my fleet." "Yes," Voss replied calmly. "Measured. Elysium 9 is one of 12 such installations across human space, each designed specifically to counter hegemony military technology." She paused, letting the implications sink in. "We've been preparing for this moment since your diplomats first contacted Earth 15 years ago. We recognize the pattern, the same one you've used against 17 other species." The bridge fell silent as the hegemony leadership processed her words. "What do you want?" Vorax finally asked. Admiral Voss's expression remained unchanged. "Your immediate withdrawal from human space, a formal acknowledgement of human sovereignty, and reparations for this unprovoked attack." "And if we refuse?" For the first time, Voss smiled. It did not reach her eyes. "Chancellor, what you've witnessed today is our most restrained response. Elysium 9 is operating at 30% capacity. The colony's primary weapon systems remain offline." Her voice hardened. "Do not test our resolve further." The transmission cut off abruptly. In the silence that followed, Ambassador Sheeler stepped forward. "Chancellor, I advise immediate compliance. These humans, they are not like the others." Vorax stared at the view screen, at the transformed colony below that had been designed from its inception as a trap for would-be conquerors. "Signal the retreat," he ordered quietly. "All vessels to fall back to the rendezvous point." As the crippled hegemony fleet limped away from Elysium 9, emergency distress signals began pouring in from the advance force at New Titan. Similar reports of a colony transforming into a massive weapons platform, of devastating losses, of perfect ambush. The humans had been waiting, and the galaxy would never be the same. The reckoning. In the aftermath of the Elysium 9 encounter, the remains of the hegemony fleet limped to their designated fallback position in the Vega Nebula. Of the original 32 capital ships that had entered human space, only 17 remained, most bearing critical damage. Chancellor Vorax's flagship, the Immutable Doctrine, had survived, but barely, its hull scarred by precision strikes. 3 of its 8 propulsion arrays offline. In the nebula's concealing gases, emergency repairs began while the hegemony leadership gathered to assess the catastrophe. 3,642 confirmed casualties, General Caligos reported, his typically commanding voice subdued. Over 7,000 ground troops unaccounted for, presumed captured or killed. 6 capital ships destroyed, 9 critically damaged. Admiral Krovac slammed his metallic fist against the tactical table. Impossible. Their defenses were perfectly calibrated to our attack patterns. They knew exactly which frequencies our shields operate on, precisely where our structural weaknesses are located. This was not just preparation, Ambassador Sheeler observed quietly. This was intimate knowledge of our military capabilities, knowledge we have never shared. Chancellor Vorax's compound eyes narrowed. You suggest espionage. I suggest we severely underestimated them, she replied. Our intelligence indicated humans were fractious, their governments barely unified, their military technology decades behind our own. Deliberate misinformation, Kalgos growled. They wanted us to perceive them as weak. The holographic display at the center of the war room activated, showing incoming transmission coordinates from the hegemony homeworlds. The Supreme Council was demanding answers. We must regroup, Vorax decided, mandibles clicking nervously. Launch a coordinated strike against multiple human worlds simultaneously. They cannot have built these defenses everywhere. Ambassador Sheeler's translucent skin pulsed with alarm. Chancellor, I must formally object. We have clearly provoked a species with military capabilities beyond our understanding. The prudent course is to crush this resistance before word spreads to our protectorate worlds. Vorax interrupted. 17 species serve the hegemony because they believe resistance is futile. If humans successfully defy us, everything we've built could collapse. As the hegemony leadership argued, none noticed the tiny anomalies in their ship's systems. Fractional processing delays, minor power fluctuations, communications microseconds slower than normal. The human infiltration had begun long before the first shots were fired. On Earth, Admiral Reyna Voss stood in the central command hub of Defense Station Olympus, watching as holographic displays tracked the scattered hegemony vessels. Around her, the command crew worked with practiced efficiency, monitoring the 12 transformed colony fortresses and coordinating with UEDF ships, now emerging from concealed positions throughout human space. Elysium 9 reports all systems nominal, Admiral, reported Lieutenant Commander Chen. Prisoner processing underway. Approximate count 7,000 hegemony troops. And New Titan. Minimal damage during transformation. 4 enemy vessels destroyed, 2 captured relatively intact. Research teams are already examining their technology. Voss nodded. What's the status of Proxima Station? Still dormant. No engagement yet. She studied the tactical overlay, watching as red markers representing hegemony vessels regrouped in the Vega Nebula. They're planning a second wave, she observed. Likely multiple targets, hoping to find a colony without Siren Protocol active. Director Marcus Harlow, head of strategic intelligence, approached with a data tablet. At 68, he was one of the few senior staff older than Voss herself, his face bearing the lines of someone who had spent decades anticipating threats before they materialized. Our infiltration packages are active aboard 17 hegemony vessels, he reported. Data streams indicate they're preparing a 3-pronged attack. Simultaneous assaults on Proxima Station, Martian Orbital, and New Terra. Voss's expression hardened. New Terra has no Siren Protocol infrastructure. No, Harlow agreed grimly. 200,000 civilian colonists with standard defensive capabilities only. The Admiral was silent for a moment, weighing options. Deploy the 3rd Fleet to New Terra immediately, and activate all remaining Siren Protocol installations. No more strategic reserves. Commander Reeves looked up sharply. All of them, Admiral. That would reveal our full defensive capability. Better than losing colonists, Voss replied firmly. The deception phase of this operation is over. Now we show them exactly what they're facing. 15 years earlier, in a classified facility beneath the Pacific Ocean, a younger Admiral Voss had stood before the United Earth Defense Council, presenting the concept that would become Project Siren. The hegemony's pattern is consistent across 17 documented encounters with developing spacefaring species, she had explained, gesturing to historical data projected on the chamber walls. Initial diplomatic contact, cultural exchange, technology assessment. Then, once they determine a species poses no significant threat or possesses valuable resources, invasion and forced integration. The defense minister leaned forward. "And you believe we're next?" "I know we're next," Voss had replied. Their diplomatic overtures follow the same script they've used for centuries. The only species that have maintained independence are those with military technology that made conquests too costly. "We can't match their technology in a decade," the science director had objected. "Their civilization is thousands of years older than ours." "We don't need to match them conventionally," Voss countered. "We need to change the paradigm. Instead of building warships they expect, we build colonies that transform into fortresses. Instead of revealing our true technological capabilities, we present a carefully crafted facade of technological inferiority." The council had been skeptical, but the intelligence was undeniable. Humanity needed a defense that the hegemony wouldn't anticipate. Project Siren was approved with the highest classification level, and over the next decade, trillions of credits were diverted through shadow budgets to create colony fortresses across human space. Now, that investment was paying dividends in hegemony blood. The second hegemony assault began 30 hours after their retreat from Elysium 9. 3 battle groups emerged from faster-than-light travel simultaneously at their designated targets. At Proxima Station, Admiral Krovac personally led the assault, confident that the seemingly vulnerable research outpost would fall quickly. His remaining vessels launched a barrage of kinetic impactors designed to overwhelm any hidden defenses in a single devastating strike. The projectiles never reached their targets. Halfway to the station, they encountered an energy field unlike anything in hegemony experience. Not a standard shield, but a spatial disruption that twisted the fabric of spacetime itself. The impactors curved away from their trajectories, some colliding with each other in spectacular explosions, others spiraling off into the void. Then Proxima Station awakened. Unlike the colonies, which had disguised their military nature beneath civilian architecture, Proxima had hidden in plain sight. What the hegemony had identified as research modules reconfigured into weapons platforms. Docking bays that had seemed designed for scientific vessels revealed themselves as launch tubes for thousands of autonomous combat drones. "Impossible technology," Krovac whispered as his tactical officer displayed the sensor readings. The station was generating energy signatures that suggested propulsion systems far beyond anything the hegemony possessed, systems that allowed it to manipulate gravitational forces on a massive scale. When Proxima Station's primary weapon fired, it did not launch conventional projectiles or energy beams. Instead, it created a focused gravitational singularity that pulled 2 hegemony destroyers into a collision course. The vessels shattered against each other, debris spiraling into the artificial gravity well until nothing remained. In orbit around Mars, the second hegemony battle group encountered similarly devastating resistance. What had appeared to be standard orbital habitats revealed themselves as interlocked defense platforms, their combined firepower tearing through the attacking fleet's formations with surgical precision. Only at New Terra did the hegemony forces initially gain ground. The colony had no hidden defenses, no transforming structures. Standard orbital platforms fought bravely, but were overwhelmed by superior numbers. Dropships began planetary descent. Hegemony troops prepared for ground assault. And then the human Third Fleet arrived. Unlike the disguised fortresses, these were purpose-built warships, sleek and deadly. They emerged from faster-than-light travel directly among the hegemony formation, internal weapon systems already charged and targeting. The battle lasted less than 20 minutes before the surviving hegemony vessels surrendered. In the Vega Nebula, Chancellor Vorax received the reports with growing horror. Not 1, not 2, but all 3 assault groups had been decisively defeated. Over half the remaining hegemony military assets in this sector had been destroyed or captured in a single operation. We've been deceived at every level, he admitted to the War Council. Their technology, their military doctrine, their very nature as a species, all misunderstood. Ambassador Sheeler's expression was solemn. We assumed they would follow the pattern of other species, unified only in the face of external threat, technologically transparent, predictable in their development. Instead, they anticipated our intentions before we even formed them and prepared accordingly. A communication officer interrupted with urgent news. Chancellor, we're receiving a transmission. It's being broadcast on all hegemony frequencies simultaneously. We can't block it. On the command screen, Admiral Reyna Voss appeared once more, but this time she was not alone. Behind her stood representatives of what appeared to be Earth's various governments and military branches, a united front. Chancellor Vorax, she began without preamble, your forces have now attacked 3 additional human worlds. Our response has eliminated approximately 70% of your expeditionary fleet. The remaining vessels are combat ineffective or captured. She paused, letting the implications settle. We have transmitted evidence of your unprovoked aggression to every spacefaring civilization in this sector, including your 17 protectorate species. We have also demonstrated our capacity to defeat your military forces decisively. One of the humans behind her stepped forward. An older man in formal diplomatic attire. I am High Emissary Callahan of the United Earth Government. We are prepared to discuss terms for your immediate and permanent withdrawal from human space. Failure to accept these terms will result in further military action. Vorax's mandibles trembled with suppressed rage and fear. You would threaten the hegemony itself. Our homeworlds have defenses beyond anything your colonies could muster. For the first time, Admiral Voss smiled. The expression sent a chill through every being on the hegemony command deck. Chancellor, what makes you think we haven't already infiltrated your homeworld defenses? Project Siren was just Phase 1 of our contingency planning. Would you like to discover Phase 2? The transmission ended. In the silence that followed, Ambassador Sheeler approached the Chancellor. We must negotiate, she said quietly. These humans, they do not think like other species we have encountered. They prepared for war at the moment of first contact. They built their colonies as weapons while smiling through diplomatic channels. They studied us while feeding us false information about themselves. Vorax stared at the tactical display, at the shattered remnants of the mighty hegemony fleet. How? He asked, more to himself than anyone present. How did we so completely misunderstand them? Because we judged them by our standards, Sheeler replied. We saw their divisions as weakness, their diplomatic openness as naivety, their technological restraint as limitation. We never considered that everything might be calculated deception. 6 weeks later, Admiral Reyna Voss stood in the observation dome of Defense Station Olympus, watching as the diplomatic vessels from 17 formerly subjugated species arrived for the historic conference. The hegemony, its military broken and its authority shattered by the human revelations, had withdrawn to its core systems, abandoning its claim over the protectorate worlds. Director Harlow joined her at the viewport, his aged face reflecting the stars. The Siren Protocol worked better than we anticipated, he observed, not just as a defense, but as a message to the galaxy. Voss nodded. Fear of the hegemony kept those species isolated from each other. Now they're forming their own coalition, with humanity as the linchpin. And Project Daedalus? Harlow asked quietly, referring to the even more classified initiative that had placed dormant sabotage systems within the hegemony's core infrastructure. Remains our insurance policy, Voss replied. But I don't think we'll need it. The hegemony has learned what happens when you mistake preparation for weakness, patience for vulnerability. Below them, Earth turned serenely, clouds swirling across continents that had never seen alien boots never would. Not because humanity had built the biggest guns or the strongest shields, but because they had understood a fundamental truth. The best defense is the one your enemy doesn't realize exists until it's too late. Throughout human history, mighty empires had fallen not to superior force, but to enemies they had underestimated. Humanity had ensured they would not repeat the mistakes of either conqueror or conquered. They had studied the hegemony from first contact, identified its patterns, its weaknesses, its assumptions, and built an entire defensive doctrine designed to exploit them. The diplomatic corps is already calling this the Voss Doctrine, Harlem noted. Deception as deterrence. Admiral Voss shook her head slightly. No doctrine survives first contact with a new enemy. Whatever comes next will need to be just as innovative, just as prepared. As the diplomatic vessels docked and representatives of formerly subjugated worlds entered human space, not as conquerors or conquered, but as equals, a new galactic order was taking shape, one in which humanity's message was unmistakable. We will never be slaves. We were ready for you before you knew we existed. And the stars themselves grew quieter in respect.